Hey everyone, I am TheChosenOneLegend here, as always joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kyle, also known as Fascurreyn.
And welcome back to the BunchaJokahs podcast, where we're here once again to talk gaming news and tidbits and what we've been playing from the month of, let me think about this, May. We're at the end of May, time is going by
Yes.
scarily fast, but that does mean we're getting closer to that June Direct, we know it's coming, but in the meantime, how's your month been, Kai? You been alright?
Yeah, been good, been chilling. We are just eternally waiting for anything that might come out for this new Switch console at this point. We are still in this limbo.
Yes.
We've got some news, obviously, to talk about, otherwise there wouldn't be a video. But, looking at how long is on this video, you might see that it says 50 minutes or something dumb, because that's what happens when we have nothing to talk about, apparently.
Every time.
But yeah, no, things are good. I think we are both relishing in this time where we get to go through the backlog. It's been very nice.
Absolutely, as I will get to later in games time. There's two big games I've been meaning to get to. I finally managed this month. But before then, we will of course go through the news highlights as well, so there'll be timestamps in the description below if you want to check out the different sections. But let's start things off with our first segment of the podcast, Can't Have a Podcast Without News Baby, where we are going to go over those highlights. And you mentioned Switch 2, which is relevant now because we got an announcement of an announcement, because that's we are suckers enough that is enough to get the internet reeling and hyped up like crazy. We now know that both the Switch 2 announcement is coming this fiscal year and that a June Direct is happening, so we'll be of course reacting to that when it happens. Now usually we would speculate on what games and that we might see, but we already did a video on that, so go check that out if you want our thoughts on what we could see in this June Direct and launch title for the Switch 2 or Switch successor. But just in general, what do you think of this time frame? Do you have a prediction of when you think it might actually release, Kai?
What, the actual console itself?
I guess either the announcement or the console itself, if you have one for either.
The announcement honestly could be at any given point. I'm sure they have something intentional for one reason or another, but I don't know what that is. Obviously, normally every other year we'd just say, oh, it'll be at E3, whatever, But that's not a thing now. So it's okay, where do they put it in? I'm sure they've been thinking about the most effective place to put something like that, because it is key for them to place it somewhere that actually does get a lot of publicity.
Yeah.
And attention in a bunch of different places. So I don't know where they're going to choose yet. That's going to be a huge, huge question. No actual predictions from me, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a tough one because all we can really say is after June, because that's when we're getting the Direct, which they confirmed no Switch 2 news in that Direct. But honestly, if I had to throw out a prediction just for the sake of it, I think their strategy with the Nintendo Switch worked well, where we got the reveal blowout in September, October time, I think, and then it released March next year. I could see them just doing a repeat of that, and we get the Switch to March 2025 or whatever, which is, at the beginning of this year, we were both oh, it's a lock for this year, and of course that's always oh, but no, screw you guys. You'll play your remakes on the Switch and you'll like it, but
Yeah, honestly, we can't even tell. I'm sort of wondering if they're expecting another lockdown to happen, because that's clearly what works well for them.
Yeah.
That's their biggest source of sales is lockdown. So I'm almost wondering if they're come on, we just bide our time until there's another one. There's got to be at some point soon.
Yeah. They've been holding off on another Animal Crossing just until that moment, because that was the perfect storm. But yeah, obviously, whatever comes out in the June Direct will be more telling, because however many games we know are coming for the rest of the year, if we've got any other big games on the Switch, that would really give us more of a clue, so we'll just have to wait till then, really. But it's nice to know that something's on its way, at the very least. And clearly, who knows what they've been sitting on, because apparently Paper Mario, which just released this month, was finished around this time last year based on certain rights checks they got done or whatever. So it's clearly they like to sit on stuff. So who knows?
I think at this point, when they have so few big games coming out, they are kind of being very strategic about placing them in regular intervals.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because they obviously anticipated this happening. Because I don't know, maybe this is just me, but Thousand Year Door is out now, and it looks like it's been very well received overall.
Yeah.
Pretty decent, faithful remake with good improvements. But, and again, maybe this is me being negative, but I don't feel like Thousand Year Door Remake is a big enough announcement that if it was done 3 years ago, would be like the headliner of Nintendo for 3 months straight. Because it has, like, that's been their main source of advertisement on everything. I mean,
No,
they've
you're
got
right.
so little happening right now that Inazuma 11 is one of their biggest things that they've got on the news category of the console. Like,
Yeah.
that's when you know they've really run out of content. So I just sort of get this feeling of like, yeah, they are being very strategic about placing the content that they do have because they don't have much. I mean,
Yeah,
I
we've
love
made-
Thousand Year Door, to be clear. I'm very happy it's the thing. It's just like, you would never see that being the main focus any other time of the year.
No. At the end of the day, it is a remaster as well. And so I think, like, maybe we've got one more big hitter for the Switch for the winter release, and that's it. And we're just going to have some smaller bits until then. Obviously, again, we did a full discussion on our predictions for June Direct games and Switch 2 launch games, so check that out if you haven't. But whilst we're on this topic of what games we do know are coming, they announced one more randomly just on Twitter, and it's definitely fitting that here's some weird smaller games trend we were talking about, because Nintendo World Championships NES Edition, it's basically a compilation of mini games within NES games, little challenges based on the World Championships they held, which it's a nice idea. I don't know about you, Kai, but I'm like, yeah, I don't care personally. It's really not for me.
Yeah, so I was looking at this and I was like, wow, that's a really, really cool Nintendo Switch Online game.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, they're adding this to that list, you know, of things like Tetris 99 and whatever else, and I was like, wow, this is a really cool addition, because that's where all the NES and related games are. So that's a really cool addition to it. And then I saw it was like, what was it, like 30 quid or something? I can't remember.
Along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, never mind. You know, I'm not that attached to it. I would have tried it if it was on the service, but I guess they don't really want to put it on there.
Yeah.
It would have been
really-
perfect. It's like the exact fit, so I don't know, it's weird. It's a weird decision.
Because when it comes down to it, it is technically another remaster in a sense. It's just reusing the old games. And like you say, it fits more as like an online quick idea. And they probably made it a full release just because there are definitely some people who are hardcore into this like retro stuff. And there's a collector's edition they released with like a cartridge style thing for it as well, which, you know, the collectors are going to eat that shit up. And it will sell enough for the minuscule budget it must have had to make it, looking at what it is, you know. So I can see why they did it, just to like tide people over and say, look, we still have games. But I completely agree, it's such a small thing that even £30 or whatever seems like a bit of an asking price. And I barely have an interest in NES games as it is. I find SNES onwards I can deal with. NES are hard to go back to. So this is not going to be for me. Even if it was free, I probably wouldn't play it more than 5 minutes. But it's something that they have to announce something, I guess, and they wanted to get it out before the June Direct to give it enough time to market it, I suppose.
Yeah, so it's a thing that exists. I'm sure there is some people who like it, but
Yeah,
I don't know. I think putting that price tag on it has really dampened it down. Like, it's a cool idea, but it's not that cool.
yeah, pretty much. It's going to be a niche thing, that's for sure. But whilst we're talking about news that's maybe a little not so good, in fact, this is the straight up bad news. We don't often talk Microsoft, but I just have to mention that we got a news of them shutting down some of their studios. And one of the big ones that came out of this was Tango Gameworks, who worked on Hi-Fi Rush, which was this big hit game, you know, people were loving it, and it won like something at the Game Awards, and then within a few months they're like, okay, you made a great game people loved, goodbye. It
is weird. You have to wonder, like, what's going on behind the scenes for them to really, like, decide to do that. Because anyone with any business sense would realise that that's a terrible idea. Like, that's their main... well, not their main source of revenue, obviously, but, like, that's a huge thing for them. To get rid of it out of the blue like that seems really strange to me.
Yeah, and they need... Apparently it was because they're just cutting off costs where they can, and because the studio had only just started work on the next game, there wasn't that much that needed to be scrapped. But that's such a bizarre thing. It's like a short-term gain, but in the long term, Xbox are so struggling with their own identity this generation, aren't they? You know, of what games do they have? They're the Game Pass machine, and that's about it. They need big hits that people associate with Xbox that will bring people to buy an Xbox over a PlayStation next generation and this generation. But as much as PlayStation's having their own issues in that, Microsoft are giving them like an open field here by just binning their few games that they had in the works. And even Game Pass isn't doing so well for them now, as I think people are dropping off now that they realise that, wait, we're paying money to not play anything because they're not releasing new games. So it's...
Exactly.
What are they doing?
Yeah, that is the golden question. What are they doing? Like, I don't know if they're trying to, put all their resources somewhere else that they're building up for, or if it's just going really slowly. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this was some, like, AAA shenanigans where they've invested all of their resources into something huge, and it's just not worth it. I wonder.
It's all about Xbox Bitcoin coming next year, Kai, right?
You're probably not wrong, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's the worst part.
Microsoft blockchain or something. They already did it with Ni no Kuni, I wouldn't be surprised.
I mean, it's one of those moments where it's making me feel grateful to be a Nintendo fan at the moment, which is nice considering, like, the Wii U era. And it's not that Nintendo don't have their own bizarre business decisions, because they absolutely do. But at the moment, they're the only ones who seem to, like, not be shutting down studios and actually investing in more talent. And we're getting, like, even though I don't particularly care about, NES World Championships or Endless Ocean, it's cool that Nintendo are willing to release these smaller titles, these weird, bizarre stuff, and don't just shut down the studios who make them. So that's one positive we have on our side of the gaming sphere, at the very least. So
it is a huge step up from, like you said, the Wii U era and that sort of time of, like, no third party, nothing like that. You can find anything on the eShop nowadays.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I mean anything. So that's the state we're dealing with. And, I think it's for the best that we have that. At least just because everything, including lots of indie stuff, can be put on there. It definitely seems to be a more sustainable approach as of the last couple of years. So it's been good to see. Obviously, a bit of a lull right now, but... I think it's all right. At least they're not laying people off, like you say.
That's true. And let's talk some even more positive gaming news, because we mentioned a little while ago, a few months back, that Sakuna of Rice and Ruin is getting an anime adaptation out of nowhere. And we actually got our first trailer and our release confirmation for July, which is way sooner than I expected. I thought this was going to be like a years off thing, or maybe next year at the most. But I know you just watched it just before we started this, Kai, and the animation looks beautiful, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I asked you. I was like, how popular was this game? Because I didn't think it was that popular, and the animation is impeccable.
Yeah.
What's happening? And then we found out it sold really well. You said, what was it, 1.6 million copies? You said
1.5, like I think. Yeah. So
1.5, that's
impressive.
Crazy good for something like that. So yeah, more power to it. Looks really good.
Yeah, it's just kind of nice seeing it all come together. Like, I love the game so much, and it's one I haven't got a chance to go back to, so this just gives me an excuse to re-experience it. And I couldn't tell too much from the trailer because it was all Japanese dialogue. I don't know if it's getting a dub or not, still unconfirmed. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't, but either way, like, as long as it gets subtitles that I can read it along, it looks like we're seeing character moments in there. Some of the action looks really cool, and seeing that played out, because, I mean, she fights with farming equipment for a start, so that's just a fascinating concept in itself to use. I can imagine her... It's kind of like our friend Sophie is deadly with a trowel, but except she's got like a farming hoe instead. But it just looks like it's going to be a really solid adaptation, and bringing the game that was already really lively, but bringing it to life in another way, so I'm just happy to see it actually come into fruition, so... Bring on July. I'll definitely be talking about my thoughts when it comes out, because I'm going to be watching it day one, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, arbitrary fighting methods, I'm very much in support of, especially when it comes to, like, animation.
Yes.
So I think that's a very fun part, and yeah, like, the part of it that impressed me the most was probably, like, some of the backgrounds.
Yes.
They looked really good, so... Yeah, honestly, I might just have to give this one a watch, even though I haven't even... I know nothing about the game, apart from what you've told me. So it's like... Okay, yeah, there's something here. It looks really
Yeah.
good, so very, very happy about it.
If it's anything like the game, I'll definitely recommend it. It's just a pretty chill experience, and it's like all set on this one island. So I'm glad that they're really bringing like the views of it to life, because even like the central place where they are is in like the center of the island, and it's quite high up, so you can like see the different parts of it spread out around you. So the fact they're bringing that
That's
all
cool.
into the animation, it's gonna be an experience. So that's definitely a good one to hear. And to end things off here for our news section, we got something just this morning, the day we're recording this, so we sort of timed this quite well. I've been wanting it for years. Lego Legend of Zelda is finally happening for us, and we're getting the Lego Deku Tree set, and it's 260 quid. Oh, my finances, no.
Crazy.
It's going down the drain.
I'm not a huge Lego guy, but correct me if I'm wrong in thinking that Lego has been kind of nuts lately in terms of how expensive everything is, especially
You are
with
correct.
These collaborations. Like I remember the Animal Crossing set was hugely expensive.
Mm.
I've seen the size of this Deku Tree. Don't get me wrong, it looks really good. But come on, man, that price is insane.
Yeah, and it seems like it tracks. Our friend Oliver was talking about it, and he knows more than me about the sets, I would assume, and he said it seems pretty on par for the other sets, so it shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, but it's still ridiculous, isn't it? It makes it so hard to want to get this, as awesome as it looks, and it does look awesome. You can change between Breath of the Wild and Ocarina of Time Deku Tree with figures for each of them, and like the small Deku Tree from Ocarina of Time, Hestu's there from Breath of the Wild. It's so many cool details, and it would be perfect thing to own. It's exactly what I want. It's just 100 quid more than I would want. So that's the problem.
No, that is the feeling, isn't it? It's like, wow, that's ridiculous. I mean, it looks really cool. So if you're like a huge, I'm sure we're going to get a comment from somebody like Deku Tree Fan 96 saying like, man, screw you guys, it's so worth it. But like for the rest of us, normal people, like, I don't know, man. It's kind of crazy. Even by Legend of Zelda fans' standards, I think it's kind of nuts for the size. If it was like a whole set, like I'd be like, yeah, man, fair enough. It's a huge thing, but we're not looking at a Millennium Falcon type thing here. This is small.
And yeah, it's like I also don't have any place to put it. Like, I love building the set, but I have filled my shelves with gaming merchandise from the last few years, and I have little room for a Deku Tree. But it's, at the very least, it's awesome that it's happening, and it looks very good quality, because there's been years of seeing like fan mock-ups of it that always look a little off, but this does look perfect. Like, it looks very nice and clean.
Yeah, I agree. It does look really good, to be fair.
And the last thing I want to bring up about it is, do you have any ideas for other sets they could release now that it's officially happening, Kai? Is there any Tears of the Kingdom or Nintendo sets you would like to see?
So I saw you mention Hyrule Castle as a joke for like 1,000 quid. I mean, genuinely, I think that would be really cool and maybe not out of the realm of possibility. Because there was the Mario 64 set, right? And that was really, really cool.
Yes, that's
so
true.
Honestly, I don't think Hyrule Castle is that far out of the question.
If you did
the
the one
only
from
thing
Tears
would be
of the...
like, what type would you do?
I feel like the one from Breath of the
Hyrule?
Wild would be good, because you have like the little underground bit with like the shrine there, and you have like Zelda's study, and it's easily the most fleshed out one. So I think that would be the best one to have like loads of little side rooms in, and like little like the secret compartments in the actual game where you like use magnesis to take away the bookshelves. Like you could have that in there as well. So they love their attention to detail. I'll give them that. So it would be a really cool set. I don't know about any. Do you have any other Zelda ones that come to mind, or like the Wind
I think
Waker
for
ship,
Zelda,
maybe,
those are
or...
basically your key two.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what else they would do. The only other thing that came to mind is Lego Roboros. But
yes.
oh God, that's a whole other thing, isn't it? Imagine the possibilities that they would never actually do.
I'm telling you, a giant Lego Makona set. Could you imagine having that? Like, and having it like move the arm as well, and then you could get a giant Lego Bionis as well, and make them fight. And there goes $4,000 probably. But it's
Yeah, Honestly, you can imagine how much it... If they did one like the size of those massive sets that they made,
Yeah.
oh my god, that would be an absolute dream. But no, I mean, realistically, they wouldn't. The only thing I would ever
No.
ask for from that is a single blue block that we can just say is Lego Mui Mui or something.
Yeah.
That would be it.
100%.
That would be the absolute dream.
I'll pay good money for that. But yeah, just whatever. I'm happy. I'm just cool to see, even if I don't end up buying them based on price. It's just cool to see them releasing some. Like again, a great ship from the Wind Waker or something like that, or a little like miniature like Great Plateau set or something. There could be all sorts of stuff you could build with it. I know our friend Oliver again mentioned the Vine Beasts and like miniature ones of those.
Oh,
The possibilities are endless. The cash flow is also endless for them, so good on you, Lego and Nintendo. You're going to be rolling in those studs. But for now, I'll have to stick to the Lego video games, because that's about what I can afford. But it's neat. And that does bring us to our final segment of the podcast, Games Time, baby, where we talk about the games we've been playing. And why don't you start things off, Kai? I know you've got 2 things to talk about, so give us one of those.
Right,
highlights.
well, I will end with the banger. We'll end the video with the banger, right?
Oh, okay.
So let's talk about one that we've both played, technically. Is Inazuma 11 Victory Road.
Yes.
Is it Victory Road? I can never remember the actual
It
name.
is Victory Road. Yes, you keep calling it the old name, don't you?
I do. It's had so many different names that I lose track very easily, despite the fact it's been this one for like 6 months now.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So obviously the original demo had already come out, and we were like, it's incredibly janky and has a million problems, but at the end of the day, it's still kind of fun.
Yes.
And now we have entered how do I say? They released chapter 1 of the main story, basically. Or I would argue it's chapter 0, because it doesn't even have any like actual gameplay in it, like football gameplay, which
true.
we'll get to, obviously. So this is, it's basically just, again, the prologue of the story. It opens up a lot of the story, introduces you to some of the characters and core exploration mechanics in the game, and as it's a couple of hours long, not too long though. As for the good stuff to start off with. I genuinely enjoyed it. I thought, like, the new story I think is really interesting. The game looks, like, visually, it's really, really clean.
Yeah.
The music is really good. I like the way that they're being quite adventurous with a lot of it. And
It feels
they've
like
just got
this-
loads of, like, explorable areas. It did remind me of Persona quite a lot, as much as I hate to say it.
The scale of this is a lot more than I expected from an Inazuma 11 game, but I guess they've been working on it for so long, and clearly it's paid off, because there's just so much to it in just this one small chapter. And I don't know how many chapters they're going to be in the full game, but if there are as many explorable areas as this one chapter, it's going to be huge. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so overall, there's a lot of very good stuff to say about this, and overall, I would say it's a really promising thing too. As for the issues with it, which we experienced, one, like I said, there is no football in the football game.
No.
It was all like setting up and lore and bits like that. There was no actual football gameplay. You never play a match, even though there was, I would argue, ample opportunity to put some in there.
Yes.
I guess, I mean, it's not really spoilers, but like there is an opportunity where it shows off a game of football in one point of the chapter. And that could have been a perfect point to introduce a tutorial and all of that. And they just
Agreed.
didn't. There's just nothing there, and then for the whole thing, you're just kind of waiting to do a little bit of football just to get a taste. Not much, just a little taste, and it never arrives. So
it's odd.
Definitely
it
could have
feels...
been changed.
Yeah, I mean, we made the comparison at your stream of like Xenoblade 1's opening is so great because it like you've got like that really slow bit where you're like just doing side quests around town and that not only is that really fun, but you start things off with the Battle of Sword Valley, this big epic fight. And so that way, because you start off that way, the chill stuff afterwards kind of works. And this game needed that, like a flashback to start with, playing the football game. Then you do your chill guy who's not into football stuff exploring the town, and it makes sense contextually and it works, but it sort of had that off balance without it, considering this is ultimately a football game. It's what's on the cover, it's what people expect from the story mode. And this, I feel like this could even give people the wrong impression that there isn't any football in the story mode if they've never played this series before. Like, it could make you think, oh, is that only the multiplayer? Because that's almost the impression it gives.
No, I completely agree. It did fall flat on that, where it just decided to not give even a little snippet, like you say, Sword Valley, where you just... It's sort of a cold opening of showing you what it's like. Would have been very easy to do and very perfect. And instead, no, you just spend the whole time walking around town and walking around school and beaches and all of that. And, like, yeah, I kept on saying it when I was playing it through on my stream. But I do strongly think that if they wanted to give a accurate representation of what the game is like as a whole, they should not have released us Chapter 1. They should have released us something like Chapter 3, where you're still early enough that there's no spoilers and you're not doing anything too advanced. You know, you're still in the beginner stages, but you are in the flow of the game at that point. You get a perfect representation of, you know, realistically, how I think the formula will go in each chapter is you start with a bit of story showing off who your next opponents will be. You spend the middle of the chapter having discussions, maybe some plot arcs, and, you know, some training and whatever, you know, some practice matches even, and then you end the chapter with a match against another team, right? And then you've got a perfect blend of practice, full gameplay, and story, and exploration. Like, it's got everything. This is a JRPG, and they showed us the first chapter, which had purely plot setting stuff. It wasn't effective. But
not just plot, though. This other weird, unique battle system of its own, where you argue with people and select moves. And I kind of liked it. Like, the whole rock, paper, scissors thing was kind of fun to it. But it was just bizarre having that be the entire focus. There was so much to do. There were so many battles as well, weren't there? So it was kind of mad.
It was very bizarre, and I think a case study needs to be done on it. That in this game, that again is just a football game, like the main gameplay they showed off in the prologue, which I assume will persist into the full thing as well, is just these dialogue based battles, which I thought were fun. I enjoyed them. You know, some of they did get quite repetitive, I suppose, because there were so many. But regardless, I did think they were quite fun. It reminded me a little bit of things like Yokai, even. So they were cool. And honestly, they were very, like, charming.
They were. A lot of humour in there.
But, yeah, exactly. But it was still, like, just so weird. You know, I was kind of saying, like, this could fit into a lot of different games. There's nothing that makes this distinctly Inazuma 11. It's just a funny dialogue-based mini-game. So although I'm very happy it's in this game, it was like just such a weird thing of like, why is this the thing you put your resources into?
Yeah, I think
like I'm not complaining. It's just so weird.
Yeah, I think it works as like a little side bit to do when you're, because obviously in the main Inazuma 11 games, you've got your bits walking around talking to people between your football matches, and I think throwing some of these in there to mix things up and add a new gameplay element is a neat idea. I just hope that the later chapters get the balance right. And there's maybe less of them. I kind of worry that there's going to be too many of them. And there's going to be a slog to get through. And you're just going to be, come on, let me get to my next football match. Which I hope isn't the case in the full game. But I like them at their core. I just hope they don't shove too many of them at you and make them too mandatory as well. If they're optional, it's a little better. But I guess we'll have to find out.
Most of them seemed to be most of them seemed to be optional, didn't they? There was like, what, 2 or 3 that were mandatory? So I'm kind of on board with that. Like you say, like option, you know, have them all be there. And if people want to play them, great. If they don't, then there's no penalty for it, really. I don't even remember if we got a reward for doing it. I guess you got some XP.
I don't know.
So, like,
is that gonna be relevant to like your level as a football player, or are they like different experience levels? Because
I think it was the football player level, personally.
Yeah, because if they rely on you to play those to level it up, I guess that could mess with the balance. But obviously, we can't tell yet because we're gonna have to wait for the full game for that one, really. But it's interesting at the very least, and I don't hate the idea of it. I just hope they polish over the execution a bit in the full game. But they're probably listening to people anyway. That's what the beta's for ultimately. So I'm optimistic.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing, is alongside this happening, there was just a
Mm.
general update for the gameplay too. And
Yes.
it's astonishing how much they improved in such a short amount of time. A lot of the
Yeah.
jank is gone, and they just made general like quality of life updates. And there were so many of them. It was like just, it was really almost like just nice. It was just really nice to see like that much effort put into making this game good and enjoyable for people, when a lot of
Mm.
other developers would have just done nothing to change it.
That's
It
true.
was just astonishing how receptive it had been and how much had changed in the gameplay side of things when that wasn't even the focus of the patch. So,
Yes.
I was incredibly happy with that, and I really hope that, that sort of philosophy does keep pressing on. Just a
Yeah.
really good sign of things to come.
Exactly. The fact they're listening is always great, and I don't know when this is going to release. I honestly expect it to be next year at this point. I could see that happening,
Yeah.
but
I mean, hey,
either
launch
way,
title for the Switch 2, I'm here for that.
yeah.
Hello?
Clearly they're making progress, and it looks good. Even though we ragged on the story mode a lot, like we liked it
Yeah.
overall quite a bit, both of us. So it's just
Oh,
some
also the
polishing for them to do.
animations, as one last thing. The
Yeah,
animations were so good.
that's a good point. And I like the story and the characters as well. I thought they had interesting like plot points in there that weren't in the main
Yeah.
three games at least, or were different enough that I actually found them kind of intriguing. So it's looking good, and I'm definitely am planning to pick up the full game when it releases. So level 5,
idea.
make that comeback. I guess I'll go on to one of my games now, and this was the month of sequels for me. I guess I'll go over them both now, so we can end on
Yeah.
the big one, the big highlight. But first of them, Spider-Man 2 I played, which I would have got back in October, but it released the same day as Mario Wonder because gaming companies hate my free time. But I got to it now, and it's like I don't have too much to say really. It's just a really solid sequel to the first game that kind of you're playing as both Peter and Miles. You've got more of the city to explore, but although it's expanded, it's also quite well streamlined as well. Where it took me, I think it took me maybe 25 hours to 100%, whereas the Spider-Man 1 took me like 45 hours or something along those lines. But it didn't feel like it was a lesser game. It felt it was actually the perfect size where it didn't waste your time with side quests. It gave you enough interesting stuff to explore all the city, and traversing the city is always great in these games. Especially now you have the web rings like in the films, where you can glide through the city as well. Like that's a game changer for traversal and getting around. Especially as you have little currents you can glide through to propel you onwards. I think that's the best way I can put it. It's one of the most polished gaming experiences I've played, where it's just completely smooth in a way that's even better than the first game. And it just wastes none of your time and lets you get straight into the action. And it's just fun. It's a fun... If you've seen any Spider-Man story, you basically know what you're getting into with, they follow the same sort of repeats of, the arcs and the characters and villains go through. But it works. It's just a classic, true and true Spider-Man story. And I kind of just loved it the entire time. I think my only real criticism is, one is that some of the gadgets you use, they took away a bit of your options with it, where before you had a gadget wheel you'd cycle through, whereas now you've only got 4 ones with quick commands. So it's smoother,
Okay.
It's still smoother, but it takes away a few of your options, especially in stealth sections. It's not necessarily worse, it's just a little different, and I kind of preferred the first game system there a little bit. And also the ending of the game isn't as big as you might expect it to be. I wouldn't quite say anticlimactic, but it just wasn't as huge as I was expecting it to be. It didn't hit as big a high as it could have done for the big finale of the game. But it's still really cool, and you're going up against Venom, who's obviously the big stuff, the big bad guy. You've got Kraven the Hunter in there, who's a fascinating, different approach for a villain. And everything with Peter wearing the Venom suit and all the stuff that goes into with that, it's just executed perfectly. It's voice acting great, character dynamic between him and Miles and the friction that comes up between them, great. It's just Spider-Man, and if you love Spider-Man in any way, you're gonna love this game. So, yeah, it's glad I finally got to play it, and maybe one day add it to your backlog, Kai.
I've never had much interest in the Spider-Man games, weirdly enough, because every time I look at gameplay of them, I think it looks really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why. It's just never really crossed my mind. But those web rings you're talking about, they look like brilliant design.
Oh, it's so good.
They look so fun. Yeah.
Yeah. It is generally like, it might have the best traversal system of any game I've played. It's up there at least, and that was already the case for the first one. But being able to glide takes away those moments where you swing up high and like you don't have a building to swing off of. Or you just want to quickly go for a quick gap, and doing like a quick turn through the side of a building and then going into like a full swing and launching up. Like, it feels so satisfying. It's there's no other experience quite like it in the game. It's just that good. So yeah, really, really solid sequel. Clearly, like, they put loads of money into this. Maybe even too much money. I think I can't remember what it was, but the budget came out, and it's like the level of how are they ever going to make their money back on these. It's it's up there with like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth recently came out that it didn't sell as well as they wanted it to, and I think it did well enough. It's just, you put that much money in a video game, you're never going to get it all back. But that's a whole other problem with AAA gaming. At the very least, it's fun to play. So yeah, that was.
Yeah, no, that's cool. It does look like a really fun one. So yeah,
it is. And that's been too happy. That's been too joyful. Let's bring in some despair here now, because on the opposite side of things, I played Danganronpa 2, which is a very different sequel than Spider-Man, but it's good. And I think it's fascinating in how it's more chaotic and open, than the first Danganronpa. Just the fact that it's set on, instead of being enclosed, locked up in a school, these killing games are taking place on like a big deserted island. But you've got like, hey, here's an area that's a theme park, and here's another huge section of it, and it's so open that it's a very different feel to Danganronpa 1, while still, carrying the core of the series. Oh, all your friends are going to die and it's depressing as shit. That's all there. But it's a really fascinating, different approach as a sequel. And I think that comes down even to like the gameplay of the trials themselves are more open. Whereas ones are a little bit more simplistic and grounded, and you can generally like figure out where they're coming. As chaotic as it can be, you can figure it out. Whereas 2's almost veers more towards Ace Attorney in the level, I feel, where it throws more shit at you, and there's more random elements. I mean, I can't even spoil anything. I want to say something, but it spoils. But there are some bizarre things, and particularly the end game, the plot twist it throws at you, that are just very out there. And this isn't even a criticism. It's like, it's just fascinating that it gives it its own feel. And I can see people like preferring 1 or 2 for that exact reason. And whereas I think overall, 1's I think hit more for me in being a bit more of a gritty, grounded experience. I love that 2 does something completely out there. And when it gets good, like, those trials still have you on the edge of your seat. And they mess with you, and pain. A lot of pain, as I know you've experienced yourself, Kai. I know you've watched the games at the very least. So
yeah. Have there been any updates? Sorry, this is a bit random. Have we had any updates to Tetris 99 lately? I can't remember.
Tetris 99?
Yeah.
Don't think so?
Oh, okay, never mind. Sorry, tangent. Right,
fuck you, Kai.
Yeah.
It took me a bit. Fuck you.
So yeah, no, I agree. It's a very interesting one. Like you say, the feel is completely different. And yeah, as you said, Danganronpa 1 has a lot more of a gritty, like claustrophobic feel because it is entirely enclosed. Everything's boarded up and sort of very, very aggressive like that. And then the second game's like, like I said, everyone's still going to die, but like, here's some tequila, I guess, for in the process. Let's just have fun on an island and have lots of happy time moments, which was a completely different idea.
Yes.
So it's very jarring because of just how... I wouldn't even say it's like an unsettling level of openness. I think it just feels unsettling full stop almost. Oh, sorry, not unsettling full stop, the opposite. It doesn't feel unsettling at all. From my experience with the game, I never felt that sense of unease, even when things are happening. It loses all that sense of tension in most of the game. And I don't even necessarily think that's for the worst, because, like you say, it's kind of like Ace Attorney, where there's a lot less tension in places, but it's still really fun. So it still becomes a good experience. It's just a different vibe, not necessarily a better or worse one.
Yeah, and
I really like it for that. Yeah,
it gets meta with it at times. It's all the ways that you're wondering, like, how does this connect to the first game? Like, it's quite clear it does in some capacity, but you're not sure how. And all the mystery to do with that is great, and the bigger, wider story stuff at the end all hits perfectly. Like, I'm on the Danganronpa 3 anime right now, and that sort of builds off both 1 and 2 in different ways, and it's just a great experience seeing all the stuff from both games sort of paying off and that. It's just a really great time. I mean, great time, it's depressing as shit, but it's good for that. And, like, there's a few negatives. I feel like some of the gameplay in the trials was made worse than the first game.
Improved Hangman's Gambit is not improved.
Yeah.
Improved Hangman's Gambit is not improved.
Yep.
I'll scream it. They realised how bad it was afterwards, to be clear. I think they apologised for it.
I didn't
But yeah, no, it is bad.
That wasn't even the worst one for me. Like, the new rhythm section, for some reason, it didn't work for me. And I'm good at rhythm games. Like, I got 100% on the Kingdom Hearts one recently. I couldn't get this one down. It just felt off for me. I couldn't figure it out. But it never ruined the experience. Like, it still was really fun overall. The trials are still great and fast-paced and have their own vibe compared to, like, Ace Attorney. And it carries that forward. And although there are some smaller complaints, like, hey, some executions weren't as good as the first game, and some... I never liked the whole gifting system, where you never know if you're gonna... It just feels kind of random.
Basically,
but you can't do... And they're sort of, stuck in a place where they can't do too much, because you can't... Otherwise, it'd be telling who's going to die next and whatnot. But even things where... One character I did max out their supports on, like... I got some really interesting character lore that paid off later in a great way, and I missed that for all the other characters. I kind of wish there were just more natural heart-to-hearts in the game, rather than having this system of gift them and talk to a few people, but you might get shit out of luck, I kind of wish more conversations and development happened naturally. Because I liked all these characters, but some of them I didn't get to find out enough about before they were gone. Even one's later game I hadn't talked to by the time they were gone. So it's a shame. It's an inherent problem with the series, I think, but it doesn't ruin it. At the end of the day, it's more Danganronpa, it's a lot of fun, and I have no idea what to expect when I get to V3, because I know that's more separate, potentially, but I'm looking forward to it. That'll be later down the line, but I love the series now, so all on board.
Yeah, we've indoctrinated you successfully. I remember talking about it in, like, the very, very early days of the podcast, so that's quite fun. No, it's been good that you're getting into it, and I will give you credit. You have been considering how, like, unpredictable these games are. You've been insanely good at predicting a lot of this stuff. Like, your success rate has been it's been higher than anyone else I've ever seen play through these games. Like, that's not even an exaggeration either. People normally get, like, some stuff right, some stuff wrong. And you've gotten way more right than that, so I don't know how you've done it. We'll see if you continue on that streak.
I think it's just a constant exposure of Ace Attorney games, and then watching you play it and watching Cole play them. At the moment, I'm watching through Lucajin's playthrough of Ace Attorney in the background with my work as well.
Oh, cool.
I'm on, like, a constant train of Ace Attorney and Danganronpa logic stuff, so it's eternally big brain. To the fact I sometimes loop around again and become small brain, but it's part of the fun. So, it's been great. But it's not been as great as peak gaming as one certain thing, Kai, and I'll let you take this away. Because... Oh,
man. Now, when we speak of, excellence in gaming, we think, like, some of the big games, we think of some of those big... The Legend of Zeldas of the world, and your, a lot of people would argue GTA. And then, you come to games that sell hugely, like Mario Kart 8, and it's like, Mario Kart 8 is the pinnacle of casual gaming. It's perfect for people, and people love racing games. And I feel like the world is kind of wrong in places, because I think it's an injustice in the world that Mario Kart 8 is one of the best-selling games of all time, instead of Garfield Kart, right?
True.
Like that, so let's talk about this. So Garfield
Where's
Kart
the lasagna in Mario Kart?
Honestly, I think it's defining. It's huge. Garfield Kart was on sale the other day. Now, ridiculously, the game is normally like 26 quid, but it was 96% off, I want to say.
It was 99p.
It was 99p, so if you got some gold points, you could have just bought it for free, which we all did.
Yep.
Now, Garfield Kart is actually quite, immense in terms of its amazing gaming quality. That it has online multiplayer that is actually very easy to set up and play,
Yeah.
despite the fact that the lobbies are timed before you can actually, but it starts itself if you wait too long.
It adds tension to it. It's part of the fun.
Yeah, it's part of the fun. Part of the fun. 8 playable characters, a huge customization options, unlockables, all of this stuff. And we had 5 of us go through and play it for an evening. And I feel like everyone has different opinions. Some called it some of the worst experience they've ever had. 100% genuine. I quite liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. And although it's obviously like incredibly jank, I did think there was an actual charm to it.
It was
So that's just
fun.
me.
It worked just enough to be playable and was broke enough to be funny, I think is the best way to put it. And it was at playing. You're not going to want to play the single player, even though I actually found playing local multiplayer with a friend, it actually runs better. When you're playing online, you mildly tap someone's car and you just come to a dead standstill, or you flip 180 degrees, or you go through the floor, or whatever. And it seems to be even worse online than it is in the main game, but it's funnier. And I would be lying if I didn't say that I had a good time playing it. Like, look, we played a game that's revered, online with each other. What was it? The Kirby Mirror. What was it?
Oh, the Amazing Mirror, yeah.
Amazing Mirror. And although like it was clearly a very well made game, I was like, okay, I'm not having fun playing this with friends. It's kind of too difficult and weird. I don't really want to play this again. We went and played Garfield Kart again like the next day and convinced our friend to get it, Samm. So, and I was excited to play it again. It's shit. It's awful. But damn it, it's kind of fun, and I hate Mondays now. I really hate Mondays. I don't know about you, Kai, but damn, can't stand
it is one of those so bad it's good kind of things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's like I say, it was just genuinely fun to go back to. Like, it was so janky with randomly just falling out the world, falling off the side of the world, coming to complete standstills, things not working, obnoxious items. But it's the kind of thing where if you go into it knowing it's bad, then you do just have a really enjoyable time because you're like, oh my god, that's so goofy, it's amazing. It's almost like, comparisons I'm thinking of are like me CPU tournaments, where it's basically pure luck who wins, but you can put a lot of heart into it because you get invested in these artificial things. Or, the other thing I was thinking is those dodgy games like Quap, where the whole point of it is that it's janky and fun.
Yes. Honestly.
So it's like, and you're sort of trying to make the most out of the jank, whatever you can possibly salvage from it. It's kind of in that perspective of like, if you treat this like a complete genuine game, you're not going to have a good time. You're going to get very, very angry and turn it off quickly. But if you're just like, hey, let's just like laugh for a while, it's a very fun experience. So it's not 99p anymore, but like, hey, keep an eye out for it, see when it goes on offer again, because I think it's quite a bit of good fun, especially for a 99p game that you can get with gold points.
And if you want to see us, play this on the channel, we might one day. Tell us in the comments. Spam the comments with "I hate Mondays" or "I love lasagna," and we'll know. We'll know that you mean business, and you worship the Garfield Kart like we do. I'm a Nermal main myself. I think Nermal's got the good stats.
I think I'm a Nermal main too. Nermal's the other cat.
Cultured. Right? Yes.
I'm a Nermal main
cat,
too.
Yeah.
Nermal kind of the goat. I won't lie.
True. It's Arlene. Nope, ain't having it. But John, you think it'd be good? No, but all about Nermal. So try it out for yourself. You'll have an experience, a spiritual experience in a way. It might change your perspective of life, but buckle up. It's something. It is. I don't think we can top that. So let's end the podcast there. Maybe we have to like finish the podcast in general there. I don't know if we can get any better than Garfield Kart, but we'll probably come back anyway. We'll think about it for the Garfield Kart content.
BunchaJokahs, here we are.
Okay, we're gonna get Samm to make up a new logo just for that. He's gonna hate us for it, but he already does. So hey ho, what's the difference at this point? But in the meantime, when you're not playing Garfield Kart, thank you guys for watching us here. You can check us out here on BunchaJokahs, of course, on YouTube or on Spotify for audio-only versions of the podcast. And we know for a fact we're getting a June Direct next month, so we'll definitely be doing a reaction to that, and maybe discussions and anything from it, depending on what highlights there are. Main podcast, first Sunday of each month, as per usual. All going to be here on BunchaJokahs. But Kai, where else can people find you at playing Garfield Kart?
Twitch.tv/Fascurreyn. Yeah, I've done a couple of different bits lately, a couple of bits of multiplayer and, obviously the Inazuma 11 stuff, but I am still going through Forsaken Maiden at the moment, so fun times.
Definitely check it out, there'll be a link in the description below, as well as a link to our friend Sam, our graphic designer, who's making that Garfield Kart BunchaJokahs logo. Get on it, Sam. And until then, we will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.
See ya.